This is Maria Joseph. Yeah, okay. This is Maria Joseph. We're going to go over some key lists for midterm 2. So I know that a lot of students had kind of wanted like a wholesome overview of everything. And so I tried my best to do that. This is the first time that I've done this, obviously. So please put down comments below and like kind of tell me if this was beneficial or not, so we can change things up for midterm 3 or leave them exactly the same. So my plan is, for example, for a slide like this, we'll be going over systems, the nervous system, and the endocrine system, right? So what I would like you to do is, in your head, ask yourselves, hey, do I know what the nervous system, like, do I genuinely know what the nervous system is? Can I apply information in regards to the nervous system? Can I do all that jazz? If the answer is no, write them down, like write down the term on a piece of paper. If the answer is yes, then just skim over it. There's kind of a lot of lists, I'm not going to lie, like maybe like 30. So with that being said, like feel free to pause, write down key terms that you don't know, and then afterwards what you should do is go back to the lecture and really make a thorough study guide with all the key terms that you don't know. At the end of the video, we'll do a short little quiz. And yeah, we'll get started. Okay, so we have 2 types of systems, the nervous system and the endocrine system. You should know details about both of those, right? Which one includes the bloodstream, which one doesn't, electrical signals, all that jazz. So write down whichever ones you don't know. We have 2 types of methods of managing internal state. So there is regulating it and conforming. What does that mean in relation to external temperature? You should know that. So again, feel free to pause the video, write down the terms you don't know, and then continue later on. Changes in homeostasis. We have one time, like puberty. We have seasonal, like a lot of seasonal breeders. We have as needed, like when you're in a stressful situation, we have circadian rhythm. So when you wake up, it's different than when you go to sleep in terms of your hormonal levels, things like that. Body temperature being constant or variable. We have 2 different categories. We have homeotherms and poikilotherms. Also, I'm really bad at pronouncing things, just a heads up. Yeah. Okay, we have regulation of body body temperature. So we have ectotherms and endotherms. Which ones do we belong in? There are different methods as to how heat is lost or gained. We have radiation, evaporation, convection, conduction. How do all 4 of these work? You should definitely know that. Adaptations for thermoregulation. We have insulation. So like when Shamu used to be in SeaWorld. You know, what was his type of insulation or her type of insulation, whatever. Circulatory adaptations, cooling by evaporative heat loss. For those of you that sweat a lot, myself included, that's a form of cooling. Behavioral responses, adjusting metabolic heat production. So go through those, see if you really truly understand all 5 of them. We have minimum metabolic temperature. So I don't think that that's supposed to say temperature. I think that that's supposed to say rate. Minimum metabolic rate, sorry guys. So we have basal metabolic rate and standard metabolic rate. Which one applies to you as an endotherm? Okay, so we have types of chemical messengers, hormones, neurohormones, and neurotransmitters. What is the difference between a hormone and a neurohormone? Which one of these goes through the bloodstreams and which ones of these don't? We have a couple of major classes of hormones. So we have peptides, steroids, and amines. In terms of accessing the cells, how do all 3 of these differ from one another? Hormones released due to stress. So we have epinephrine and norepinephrine, and we also have CRH, ACTH, and glucocorticoids also, like, and within that umbrella branch of glucocorticoids, we have cortisol in specific. So, for example, one of these is related to a hypothalamus pituitary axis, which, so like group these together, for example, what part of the adrenal gland do these two come from? Group the three of these. What part of the adrenal, not all three of these come from the adrenal gland, but what is the sequence in which they are released? Which one is released from the hypothalamus? Which one is released from the anterior pituitary? Which one is released from the adrenal gland? Which type of adrenal gland? Know all that. Okay, and just a little tip. Okay, so like, for example, there's the adrenal medulla, which is the middle of the adrenal gland, and then there's the adrenal cortex, which is like this outer layer on top of the adrenal medulla. The way that I remember which one comes from the adrenal cortex is like, there's one of these sequences that has a lot of C's, so like you see a C here, and a C here, and a C here, and a C here. That one is the one that's associated with the adrenal cortex, or the outside. Okay. Key sex steroid hormones. We have our androgens. So our androgens are a huge umbrella branch that include testosterone, DHT. I really shouldn't be saying all this because the whole point of this was supposed to be like you look it up by yourself. But anyways, huge umbrella branch. And then we have our estrogens. We also have different types of estrogens, but in general, estrogens are the umbrella. Maybe it's the umbrella branch is estradiol. Anyways, we have androgens and we have estrogens. Which one dominates which sex? Do both sex exhibit these two? You should know the answers to those questions. Key determinants of differentiation of the bipotential gonads. So we have like our SRY gene, our testosterone, our anti-Müllerian hormone, otherwise known as AMH. If you have these three present, for example, you should have what kind of ducts? I'm waiting for an answer, but you should have Wolferian ducts. And the way that I remember that mammalian ducts, Müllerian ducts are for females, because my name is Marina and I have Müllerian ducts. So if that helps you, great. If it doesn't, whatever. Müllerian ducts come as a consequence of the absence of these three, right? Two major modes of reproduction, asexual and sexual. You should know the difference between sexual and mating, having sex and mating. You should know the difference between those two. Are those two things the same? What exactly is the difference, etc.? Types of asexual reproduction. So you have fission, fragmentation, and parthenogenesis. What exactly are these three? Are there certain groups that are associated with each one of these three? You should know that. Types of parthenogenesis. You have obligate and facultative, that word right there. Parthenogens. You should know the difference between the two. And a lot of these kind of just come with the wording. So like if you are an obligate parthenogen, you should, as an obligate, you are obligated to reproduce through parthenogenesis. You should kind of be able to figure out the definitions of those. Types of hermaphrodites. So we have simultaneous and sequential hermaphrodites. Again, with the whole, this is in a sense kind of like common sense. If you know what a hermaphrodite is, it's like expressing male and female reproductive tissue. But with simultaneous, you're both a male and female at the same time. With sequential, you can start off as a male and become a female, or start off as a female and become a male, etc. Okay. So key terms for pregnancy. You guys are probably going to hate me for this because there's a whole buttload of them. Also, I'm really bad at pronouncing all of these, so this is going to be interesting. But you should definitely write down the key terms that you're not very familiar with, and then go back and really sit down with them, do whatever you need to thoroughly understand them. So we have the chorion, that one, what right there, the oviparous ancestors, HCG, blastocyte, placenta, vascularized, progesterone, trophoblast cells, umbilical cord. I don't know what's happening right now, but yes, please know what all of these are. 10. Oh my God, there's more. Okay, so amniotic egg. How does that relate to pregnancy as we've evolved? Allantois. Okay. Organogenesis, unbalanced chromosome numbers, alcohol damage, gonads commit, sexual differentiation of the brain. So scientifically, yes, female and male brains are different. Fetal movements, fingernails, external genitalia, and outer ears. Like, when do all these develop? What trimester? Like, I don't know. It's kind of weird to me that fingernails develop. It just, I don't know. It's like a weird image for me. But anyways, you should know a lot about each one of these, right? Okay, awesome. Key terms for pregnancy. I guess that these are more, not so much key terms, but they're key hormones. So estradiol and oxytocin. For example, if your doctor is trying to induce contractions, which one of these, which hormones do you think that they are going to give you in order to help induce that? Neuron terminology. So we have dendrites, axons, synaptic terminals. Remember, you shouldn't just be able to see these and be like, oh yeah, I've heard of a dendrite before. You should really be able to pinpoint what a dendrite is, what happens in a dendrite, what happens in an axon, synaptic terminal, etc. Know the details. That is key. Okay, we have key proteins. So we have sodium potassium pump, potassium channel, sodium channel. Which one of these are actually related to an axon potential? So we have that like cool little triangle thing, and then, yeah, you know what an axon potential graph looks like. During which parts of these graphs do what channels open up, right? One of these proteins isn't even really associated with the axon potential. Which one of these proteins is not really associated with an axon potential? You should know that. Okay. Key parts of the nervous system: nerves, ganglia, brains. You'll hear these terms over and over and over again. Just get them down now. What are each of these components? How do they kind of build up, type of thing? Key parts of the brain. We have the forebrain, midbrain, hindbrain. These things will not escape you. You will constantly hear about these 3 parts of the brain throughout whatever classes that you take. So you got to know them. Key parts of the telencephalon, cerebrum, hippocampus, which I totally spelled wrong. That should be campus with an A right there. And your amygdala. I still remember some of this stuff from high school. So like, I remember my high school teacher was so good at helping us memorize things. So for example, for the hippocampus, he told us like, oh, imagine that there's a hippo that's lost on campus. Like, how is he supposed to remember where his classes? Through his hippocampus, because the hippocampus is like, you know, it has memory functions. Yes. Okay. So yeah, know what the hippocampus is. Know what all these are. All of them are important. Very key. Okay, we're gonna move on. Key parts of the diencephalon. We have the hypothalamus, which is not the same thing as the hippocampus at all. Different brain regions, different everything. Hippocampus, hypothalamus, different, okay? And we also have the thalamus. Hypothalamus and thalamus are not the same thing. Which one of these are associated with the huge axis that we've been learning? It's the HPA axis, the hypothalamus, pituitary adrenal axis, or whatever. Hypothalamus, hormones, very important, so important. Okay, key parts of the cerebellum. There are no key parts that we've learned, I believe. If I'm wrong, please put it down in the comments or something. But the way that according to like the psychology teacher that I was talking to you about, the way that he helped us memorize it is like, imagine there's a bell on top of your head and you're like trying to balance, right? So cerebellum has to do with balance, movement, etc. Okay, development and organization of the human brain. I hope that you guys do not kill me, because there's a lot, but it should help you. Yeah. Synaptic pruning, neurulation, selective neuron reduction, growth supporting factors, apoptosis, neural migration, myelination, synaptogenesis. All of these things are super important. Make sure to, again, pause and really think. What are these, and how do they affect the organization of the human brain? Memory. We have a couple of key regions, key terms, etc. And I think that these are super fun. Telencephalon, encoding, consolidation, storage, retrieval, long-term memory, working memory, short-term memory. You should be able to know what all of these terms really, really mean. If I tell you that someone has a problem with short-term memory, you should be able to think of a situation, you know, like what does that really mean if someone has a problem with short-term memory? Okay. Rules of sensory cortices in memory. So we have the cortical region and the association cortices. What exactly do those regions do? How do they affect memory? Making memories on a cellular level. What is neuronal plasticity? What is synaptic plasticity? And what do they have to do with making memories? Sensory systems overview, input, integration, output. What exactly does it mean if it's cold outside? What part of these three regions does being cold really being in a cold environment rather directly affect? Types of sensory receptors, mechanoreceptors, hearing. And also one thing that I should say is sometimes when something is quote unquote so easy, you're like, oh, I know what hearing is, I know what touch is. Those are the things that we forget to actually spend time and memorize, and those are the things that we get wrong on tests. I say that because I specifically remember that happening for Bio 5B for myself. So mechanoreceptors, we have hearing and touch. Those are the two types of mechanoreceptors. Electromagnetic receptors, we have, for example, vision goes underneath that umbrella branch. Thermoreceptors, chemoreceptors, which include taste and olfaction. So you should know, you know, like we know that mice, for example, have really great sense of smell, or dogs. Which one of these like receptors do you think that they have more of? Okay, cool. So with that being said, we're done. At this point, you should have a huge list of terms that you don't know, unless you've, you know, studied really hard. Then that might be different. I don't know. I would imagine that everyone has a couple terms that they're a little bit iffy on. So you should go back and thoroughly go through everything and really be able to understand that. If you have any questions, you have our emails. Please email us. We would love to help you in any capacity that we can. Just don't send us like the whole list. Like send us things that you are truly and genuinely confused on. Words. The reason I think that this exercise is so helpful is because I know, at least for myself, I had an issue with being like the difference with being able to recall terms and the difference between actually knowing them. Now, if a term is just put up on your test, obviously you'll need to come up with all the information without any context. So I think that that's why this is to an extent helpful. Even if it's hard, it should be helpful. Okay, we'll move on to the first question. You go to the San Diego Zoo, which I actually did after my Bio 5B final, and I was like, oh my God, I can't turn off my brain because everything animals. Anyways, you see a bear. The bear is a mammal that hibernates. How does it thermoregulate? I'll give you guys a second to think of an answer. Okay, so it's endothermic, right, in the sense where it regulates its internal temperature through a bunch of different processes. And I hate this word. Poikilothermic, whatever. It's that because it hibernates. And hence, for a period of time, that means that its internal temperature varies. Okay, your doctor wants to quantify your metabolic rate. Should he or she use BMR or SMR? Your doctor should use BMR because you are an endotherm. That's a differentiation between BMR and SMR. It's whether you're an endotherm or at least one differentiation is BMR, endotherm, SMR, ectotherm. Cool. Your son has a defective aromatase enzyme. Will he masculinize normally? So at this point, you should be asking yourself, what exactly is an aromatase enzyme and how does that affect masculinization if it does? Okay, so no, he will not masculinize normally because an aromatase aromatase is an enzyme that causes testosterone to be converted into estrogen, right? And so without this masculinization of, without testosterone being converted into estrogen, there is no normal masculinization of the brain. You need, in other words, you need estrogen for your brain to masculinize. Okay. Let me get that out of the way. A week after you have sex, you discover that you have a baby. The doctor offers you a pill that will kill the baby and reverses the effect of a hormone. What hormone is it? And this is a real life thing, I believe. Like, this is, I don't think it's the morning after pill, but it's something that you can take within like 2-3 weeks, I think. But and so it's progesterone. Progesterone is the key hormone that maintains pregnancy. So if this pill reverses the effect of progesterone, the baby will indeed die, because again, you can't maintain the pregnancy without progesterone. Your myelin is degenerating. How will this affect, not his life, your life? Sorry, guys. How will this affect your life? So there's actually a disease where your myelin degenerates, and that's called multiple sclerosis, or MS. And the symptoms of this include slurred speech, blurry vision, tremors, etc. And you can imagine that's because your action potentials can't skip through, right? So like, if this is your action potential, and for example, I don't know, this is like the myelinated region with my hair bands, your action potential travels here, it skips over and it continues. So with that being said, things would be a lot slower in terms of traveling action potentials. Okay, oh, just kidding, one more question. You take your child to Bath and Body Works and you notice she can't smell anything. This issue has persisted for 10 years now. What might be the issue? So it's with a specific type of chemoreceptor that is associated with your olfactory system, aka your smelliness, ability to smell, whatever. So yes, that would be a lack of chemoreceptors. And that's actually the last question. So again, I believe in you guys. I've already told you guys many times, at least my SI students, I did really bad on the first Bio 5B midterm, and I studied my butt off, and it worked. Like, even if you did really bad and you want a solid A, really believe that you can do that. At least that was the case for me. Just try your best. You guys are gonna do phenomenal. You guys are all very gifted people. I have no doubt about it. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the video now. Oh. Okay, thank you.